Hello and welcome to the Zach Brown Show, the show that introduces you to old friends for the first time. I'm your host, Zach Brown. It's time for another installment in our Success Starts Now series. On this episode, I talk with entrepreneur and marketing guru, Jack Levine. We discuss doing whatever it takes to get the job you want and why a plunger might help. And if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. Let's get started. Handcrafted under sunshine and fireworks, Core Memory Candles brings a level of quality that honors the Disney scents that they capture. Now your home or office can smell just like some of your favorite attractions and resorts. Whether it's flying over the crystal clear waters of Fiji, sailing past a band of merry pirates, or stepping through the doors of the Great Ceremonial House, the Walt Disney World Resort is chock full of memorable smells that stay with you long after you've returned home. Fortunately, Core Memory Candles has found a way to capture those smells and will send them right to your front door. Also available in wax melts and fragrance oils. But wait, you can also get face mask and fabric refresher sprays. I've personally bought many different scents and I can't wait to try more. You can get yours at CoreMemoryCandles.com. Core Memory Candles. Breathe, be home. Jack, thank you so much for just taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit and share with me tonight.
Great. I'm so psyched to be here, Zach.
This show, as our regular listeners know, is just all about people's stories. What makes them tick, their passions, what brought them to this point. You are kind of an anomaly and very much this unassuming, and I mean that in the most loving way possible, fairly quiet person from just the kind of passing, very kind, but just full of stories, experience, and if anybody would take just 5 minutes or the next 45 to sit and hear how you got to this point, I think they'd truly be fascinated and be enriched for having listened to your stories.
Well, I don't know about that, but we're happy to find out and give them a shot to see. It is a unique story, I will tell you that.
Where were you born? Where did this whole journey start?
I was born in New York, in Yonkers, New York. Had very wonderful, loving parents, very middle class, but spoiled my brother and I. I have a brother who's 4 years older, great brother, and just great life. Grew up playing baseball and going bowling alleys and bowling, and friends playing football and cards, and just very warm, loving atmosphere.
When you were a kid, what did you want to do? What was this is what I'm going to do?
Sure. There was only one thing, and that was play baseball for the New York Yankees. Be Mickey Mantle or Bobby Mercer, or dating myself a little bit. Mickey was at the very tail end. Yeah. It was great to see him. That was the dream, but I did realize early on that wasn't going to be a reality. Certainly by high school, even though I thought I was an excellent fielder, we didn't get the abilities to hit. We played a couple of months a year, and I never developed that skill to hit like I needed to go any further. So I knew that wasn't going to happen quickly. Okay.
So you want to be in sports, you love the game, clearly.
Yes.
And Yankees, the whole deal. And in this moment you go, this isn't what I'm going to do. So what did you decided, this is what I'm going to do instead?
Sure. So I knew in high school I wanted to write, and I thought journalism was for me. I thought if I couldn't play sports, then writing about it, being a sportscaster or a sports writer, would by far be the next best thing. So I was writing my brains off in college, and poetry and stories and letters and just lots of stuff. And then I got another, I'll call it shock. By the time I got to college, very early on in freshman year in college, as a journalism major at Syracuse, the SI Newhouse School, one of the top journalism schools in the country, very excited to be there. And as I started getting D's and F's on the papers I was turning in. So I'm like I'm like in shock. I'm like, why am I getting D's and F's? This is like great stuff. And the professor very lovingly said to me, your grammar is terrible. And I looked at him like shocked, and I'm like, who cares? That's why we have editors. I'm not about periods and commas, and I mean, my words, were good. So I'm like, this is absurd. So that's when I realized I need to go into advertising, where nobody cares about punctuation and spelling.
Right.
It's the thought that counts. So I shifted from journalism to advertising in college, a very good move on my part.
And it's what I'm seeing between those two things is it's the story. It's conveying the emotion, the thing that you're excited, what you're trying to tell them. You don't care about the punctuation, the wording, whatever. You're just saying, this is what you need to know. This is what I'm selling you.
It's the bottom line. And as I got older, I certainly realized that, one of the gifts God had given me was the ability to communicate, was the ability to express my ideas and thoughts clearly. Whether they were right or wrong or not, I don't know. I thought they were right. But the ability to express them and to relate to people kind of where they're at. to be able to, perhaps get the same idea across to different people in a different way if necessary. So I loved advertising and I loved journalism, and we'll come back to the writing part later, but I loved advertising because it was like baseball. The amazing part about advertising was it mirrored baseball in so many ways. I played for NWA and Bozell and Jacobs, worked for, I should say, major top ad agencies. There were veterans, there were rookies. We were competing against other companies. And like baseball, no 2 days were ever the same. It was always a different game, a new day. It was exciting. I personally don't think I could be a bank teller or a postman, although I think those are wonderful professions. But I don't think I could personally do the same thing every day, just repetitively. So for me, it was excitement. It was great. I got to learn from the old timers. It was just literally when I walked into Madison Avenue in NWA in 1981. It was like playing baseball for the Yankees. I felt like I'd been called up to Yankee Stadium. There were 1,100 people in our company. There were superstars in the industry. I mean, superstars, most regarded guys who are in Ad Week and Ad Age every week. And you're hanging around these guys and get to learn from them and know them, and you're with other guys, and it was great. It's wonderful.
What was the turning point when you, how did you get into advertising? Was that something you came up with on your own, or did somebody say, here's what you need to do? What was that shift?
No, I came up on my own that I wanted to be in advertising.
Okay.
I'll use the word ferocious in a good way. I was ferocious in looking for a job and trying to get a job. It was 1980. I graduated. 79 I graduated, so I was looking for work in 80. And there were no jobs on Madison Avenue. The economy was in a tough spot. It was very difficult to get a job, and I had this college degree. I was actually a dual major out of Syracuse with an advertising and sociology degree, and couldn't get a job, nor could anybody else. So I made a decision that I had to get in no matter what. My strategy was I have to be where the action is. I'd rather be the janitor for the Yankees than playing in some minor league team. So I went to NWA and I went in as a typist. Back then there were typists. Before the internet, there were typewriters. And I said, look, just hire me as a typist. And the lady looked at me and she said, we can't hire you. And I said, why not? And she said, you're overqualified. And I said, well, listen, I'll make you a deal. I'll make you a personal commitment. She said, you're overqualified and you'll leave. You're going to get bored and leave in 2 months. I said, I guarantee you I will stay at this job for a year. I give you my word. I will stay at this job for a year if you hire me. And she said, okay, on those terms, I'll hire you. They did hire me. I went in as a typist. Now, remember, I had a dual college degree in advertising. I went in as a typist at $10 an hour. Very little back then for that. And they promoted me out within 3 months. They promoted me out. I didn't have to ask. And she was happy to see me promoted out because she looked good from hiring me. So it worked out well. But the key was, Zach, I was determined to get in any way possible. I didn't let my pride stand in my way. I didn't care. I genuinely believed that if I got in there, if I could open the door just a crack, I could kick it down. But if I couldn't get the door open or get in, what was the sense? So to me, just being around those people, getting in there was the key. And I didn't know how long it was going to take to have success by my definition, but I knew if I can get in the arena, I could make it happen.
Yeah. There's a fine line between brown-nosing and saddling up next to people that can move you. And I think that's strategic. I don't think it's like you're looking to just look good. You're looking for the opportunities to advance yourself. How can I make this company better, this team better, this organization better, all while moving myself?
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, there's a fine line between stalking and love. So absolutely, I would agree 100% with that. Again, it comes down to my determination, which was just inside of me to get what I want. I I say that hopefully in a positive way. I think I was manipulative as a kid. I want to admit that. I was good at getting what I wanted, however I had to do it. Some of the stuff looking back on who I was, I'm not very proud of. It's not the man I really want to be, but some of the traits and characteristics, that I've been able to assimilate, but, use them in a positive way, use those traits in a positive way. So when I looked at people, and this is something I learned in life, I love meeting people and seeing people. And when I saw a positive quality about a person, I took it and made it a part of myself. Even back in junior high and high school, I remember meeting kids and saying, I really like that about this guy. I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be like that. And I had my own core of who I was, but added these parts of other people that I thought were, attractive and I wanted to be a part of me, and that became a part of it. So as I got onto Madison Avenue, I realized that, look, connections were everything, and I had none. I was in there. I had none. So I started to develop relationships with people in the company, but I was strategic about it. When I got hired, there were 1,100 people in the company. We were on 7 floors of a 50-story building in New York. The company had 7 floors. I was on the 40th floor. Top management was on 41. I took home the employee handbook, and I literally hung in my bedroom the 11 top executive companies in the picture, executives in the company's picture on my wall, and memorized their faces so I'd recognize them in the elevator. And then when I did, I said, hello. And then when I saw that the chairman of the company, was having a blood drive or having a softball team, I played on the softball team, there were some executives there, any charity or activity I could do, any after hours, after I did my work to the best of my ability, never at the expense of the job they hired me to do. But in addition to, I wanted to be around these people. I wanted to learn from them. Most importantly, it would be like, being on the Yankees as a rookie, and there's Mickey Mantle or Bobby Mercer in the clubhouse.
Right.
Well, I guess I can be intimidated, or I can go up and introduce myself, and, maybe they'll teach me something. So that worked very, very well. I started to develop connections. I started to get known for, doing things. And had a particular incident happen that jumped my career 5 years. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I used to get to the office 7 in the morning. I couldn't wait to get there. We didn't have to work, didn't start till 9. I could not wait to just be there. Again, it felt like Yankee Stadium. I was in Madison Avenue with the top guys in the world. I couldn't wait to get there. So I'm at my office 7 in the morning drinking tea on the 40th floor, and Dom Rossi, the number 3 guy in the company, comes down, and he looks around. Of course, I know who he is. I say, Dom, can I help you with something? He goes, yeah, I'm working for Peter Nathan, who shared the next office with me, an account executive. I said, Dom, he's not in yet. Is there anything I can help you with? He said, yeah. And I knew we were pitching AT&T a $500 million account. $500 million a year to the agency, right as they were breaking up in the monopoly. And we had the account for years, and they were calling us out, and there was a pitch with 3 other agencies, and we had to compete to fight for the job. And this was the morning of the pitch. So the top guys, Lou Hagopian, George Everman, Jerry Ciano, and Dom, were going out to AT&T in Bedminster, New Jersey to pitch the account. So he says, yeah, I need this file. I said, all right, let me get it for you. So I find the file, instantly I hand it to him. He goes, what are you doing this morning? Nothing. Why? He goes, well, why don't you come out with us? I said, okay. I was just in shock. I'm driving out in the limousine with the 4 of these guys as they're fighting for their life for a $500 million account. And I get to sit through the new business pitch that day, and the rest was history. Don Rossi took a liking to me. My career advanced. There was a management training program that you had to be hired with a master's degree into at NWA. And I asked if I can get to the management training program, and they said, no, you have to be hired in with a master's degree. I thought, well, that sucks, but okay. And here's these, and I mean this with love, but here's these guys coming in, and they were definitely smarter than me. They had definitely more book knowledge than I had. And they were getting, into this fast-track management training program, being groomed, and I'm like, oh, man, this stinks. So I started something called Ad Club. I got together with all the other schnooks like me who weren't in the master's program, who were rookies, and I said, look, why don't we meet after work once a week on Tuesday nights and invite in different speakers, first from the agency, to teach us. Let's have our own. So we start this, it gets a little popular. We start some of the executives coming in, and we get a media guy and a traffic guy and a creative guy, and it gets around. Eventually the chairman of the board, we have to invite him, Lou Hagopian. There's an article about us in Ad Age, huge. It's like, unbelievable. There's our picture in Ad Age with our little ad club thing. Then Whit Hobbs writes an article about us called Help Yourself, about me and my buddy Andy Brief, who started this, about, look at the future of advertising and this and that. And it actually went into Whit's book called What I Love About Advertising. He's passed on since. It's great. So, we had that going for us. And then after that, Don pulled a couple of strings, and they let me into the management training program.
That's fantastic.
So they broke that rule. But again, it came from determination. Zach, I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't have a timetable. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this for 3 months and it's going to work. I didn't know if it was going to be a month or 5 years. I didn't care. I was focused on advancing my career, and I wanted to learn how to do that. And, I sought out mentors in the agency, I think in a very strategic way. And that way was, I didn't go up to somebody and say, will you mentor me? I went up to some of the guys, strategically, and I said, listen, I have a question. Can I get 5 minutes of your time for some input? Yeah. And I'd get them, before work or after work when they weren't too busy.
So anybody would be 5 minutes.
Exactly. but nobody's going to sign on to mentor somebody they don't know. I don't want to be your mentor for the rest of your life. I don't even know who you are.
Right.
But 5 minutes, you want to pick my mind, the greatest of ever, because you value my opinion? Of course. So that's a strategy I still tell, people today to employ, is don't ask somebody to mentor you. Go ask them about a specific question. What would they do in your spot, or what advice can they give you? And just ask them once and then thank them very much and leave. And the key to all that is when you ask a question, the key is to shut up and hear the answer. I can never learn anything when I hear myself talk. I know I'm talking a lot in this broadcast because you're asking me about my thing, but that's the truth. Yeah. I want to ask an open-ended question, and I want to shut up. I don't want to give my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. I already know what I know. I want to know what they know. And I want to talk and hear that. And relationships develop that way, and friendships. And then the most important part, I think, is going above and beyond. It's doing what nobody else will do. It's not just about working harder, it's working smarter, but it's being, focused on doing whatever it takes to get the job done until it's done without watching the clock, and to do it with excellence. With everything you do with excellence, no matter who. A big thing is not to get involved in cliques at the company. Never say anything bad about anybody. You don't know who knows anybody. You're walking into a new company. You don't know who's sleeping with who's cousin, who's related to who. Mm-hmm. So you want to be this outstanding example to everybody. And the example I give is, look, if you were going to start your own company, me and you were buddies, we'd work together, and now you're going to start your own company, or you get your own division and you get to hire your own people. Who are you going to hire? The idiot that didn't pay attention, stole all the pencils, and talked about sports all day and didn't do his work? Oh, he was your best buddy. He was a blast to be around. But now it's your ass and your bottom line and your future on the line. I'd never hire that guy. Yeah. Give me the jerk I didn't talk to who worked his ass off all day, who's going to benefit me and the company. That's the guy I want on my team.
Right.
I want to be that guy to everybody. And I want to go above and beyond and just, be known as that guy who just gets the job done at all costs.
Yeah. So much. Okay, there's so many things I just want to unpack about what you just unfolded, and so good. So the one thing that you just said that I love so much, that I personally am trying to work on in myself and be better about, that you said, when you ask a question, shut up. Because I think so many times anymore, when we ask a question, we're looking for the other person to validate what we already think. We're not listening to understand, we're listening to respond. And I think the faster that we flip that around, how much more of an understanding and honestly tolerable society that we'd be, to not be trying to so eagerly prove ourselves right, but to just hear A, another perspective, or B, just gain some knowledge. I mean, that's such a, again, strategic to just sit and listen to what, you're seeking knowledge, truly seek knowledge.
Yes.
Put what you already have, your anticipation, your expectation, put it to the wayside, and let's see what this other person has to bring.
And I also think that, you have to be knowledgeable on your own. In other words, you can't walk into a company in an interview and not know about the company. And and I'll just use advertising as an example. It doesn't matter if you want to be a teacher, an engineer, a stockbroker, an entrepreneur, whatever you want to do. You should be up on every trend in that industry. Nobody's asking you to be an expert, and you don't have to have a master's degree, but you should be reading the industry magazines and knowing the buzzwords and knowing what's going on. You should at very least do that before you even talk to these guys in the company. I mean, don't come in as an idiot and say, the guy, teach me everything. At least find out what you can know on your own already, know that, and then say it. And then look, I do a lot of public speaking. At conferences and churches, to college, to companies, a lot of it. And in those opportunities, they are looking for what I know. Mm-hmm. I'm just spewing out, kind of like we're doing today, what I know for whatever it's worth. But I'm telling you, to this day, when I'm going in as an entrepreneurial guy, there's a lot of industries I'm learning about. Right now, I'm involved in the biotech industry a little, so I've got to learn science. When I got involved in the solar project, I had to learn all about solar. I didn't know anything about it. So believe me, I ask questions and I shut up. But one thing for sure, I'm going to ask till I know the answer. And if I don't understand something, I'm going to say, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that to me again? Why? Because it's much more beneficial to me to find out the truth. And I'm not a freaking superhero. I'm not. I don't pretend to be. No, I need education in here. Please teach me. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to be embarrassed to say, no, I didn't understand that. Can you explain that to me again? Can you take me through this a different way? Because I want to know the truth. So I think it's imperative. And you have that. You have these people who have wisdom, knowledge, and experience. There were guys in NWA. There's one guy in particular I'll never forget. Jules Green. He was an old guy. He had to be 80 years old back then. And he was in an office by himself, and he never did anything. And everyone ignored him. I mean, he was, part of the AT&T team. He was like in there, and he clearly had some history, but he was there based on history, and so, I don't know, I just started talking to him a little bit and, talking to him, and he was amazing. He was a Broadway legend. He was friends with Sammy Cahn, who was a major Broadway writer of great hit songs and plays and well-known, and he got Sammy Cahn to write stuff for the agency, and he had so much knowledge and wisdom, and everybody had passed him by. Everybody thought he was worthless, and I gleaned so much from talking to him, and it was just amazing. And then there was other guys, and I'm just mentioning by name all good things. I'm saying Tom Maxey, who was the head of AT&T at the time, head of the entire account. So there's 1,100 people. AT&T probably had 300, 400 working on it. There's lots of other accounts, but that was a big one. He was the head of the whole thing. Military guy, very stern. Business, by the book guy, never cracked a smile.
Yeah.
And, again, being there 7 a.m, you'd see these guys coming in. I got talking to him. He liked me, and he said to me one day, he said, the best advice I ever got in business, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. I never forgot that. Mm-hmm. I never forgot that. That's how you get noticed. You be different. You keep going. You don't give up. And that's the key, brother. It's determination. The one thing to do is never to quit.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
So backing up to multiple things that you've said here, which is so good. So you're just talking about Jules.
Yes.
And you went and you gleaned from him.
Yes.
And you knew who he was. And you had the pictures of the execs in your room. Most guys have Bruce Springsteen and Mickey Mantle up on their wall, but you've got the execs of this company because you are about it. You're wanting to move forward. You're wanting to learn. And again, what I was saying earlier, it's not about brown nosing, but you're saddling yourself up with these people that have knowledge. You're looking to glean from them, and you're letting them. You're presenting yourself. You're kind of letting them be aware that you are in the space.
Yes.
And in your book, you talk about how you would send memos.
Yes.
Across the company. Talk about that because I think that is such a simple, but it's neat. Just talk about that.
So. George Eversman, who was Lou Hagopian's number 2 guy. So, as I saw things in the agency, not a lot, but like 2 or 3 things that I would just send a memo to George Eversman, and I figured I better not send it to Lou, but let me go for George. He was like less known. He was like the quiet guy. And I just say, hey, George, by the way, I noticed this. And one time, this was amazing. Air was an amazing company, NW Air. The first week I got there, it was like September, October or something, they announced they were giving every employee a $1,000 holiday bonus.
Okay.
I was there a week and I got a $1,000 bonus. I'm going, this is the greatest thing ever. It's like the greatest place. I'm in advertising. I just got a $1,000 bonus. It was phenomenal. So they gave us Fridays off in the summer afternoons. 1 o'clock you could leave on Friday afternoon. Everybody, the whole company. And I noticed that, man, people were working their asses off on Friday. Like they were so appreciative that they worked harder to get all the work done.
Right.
So I sent George an email and I said, George, I just want to thank you. I just want to tell you what I've observed, that, people are working harder. Like, this was a good move on your guys' part. You're getting tremendous value. Everybody's busting their ass, thank you. And stuff like that. So as it turned out, I went to college, a buddy of mine in college, Bob Bucas, his father, Gar Bucas, was a top executive and was neighbors with Lou Hagopian, our chairman, in Darien, Connecticut. So these guys lived like next door to each other. So they're at some party, and Hagopian said, and George Eversman is there, and they're talking to Bob's father, and my name comes up, which is a good thing. And George Eversman says, yeah, I get more memos from Levine than I get from the top executives in the company. In a good way. I mean, he didn't know me, except I'd say, hello, George, in the elevator. Hello, George, and, whatever. And again, then I got to see these guys on their blood drives and their charity things. So again, in a good way, not a stupid way. I didn't write a memo if there wasn't something to say, or if there wasn't something to point out, and I didn't overflood it. But, and there was, listen, I mean, I was going for the power guys. I had a selfish motivation. It wasn't just what I could learn, but it was also who could do something for me if they wanted to. I didn't expect that my career would get ahead based on favors. But I wanted to put myself in a position where if somebody liked me, they had the power to help me if they wanted to. Yeah. So I was determined to go the distance with or without my career getting leapfrogged. But it was great that it did.
Because they won't move you if they don't know you. And they were seeing
Well,
that
it'll take a lot more layers. You can get moved,
fair.
but just one layer at a time.
Right.
And you're one in a sea of many. And look, there's advantages and disadvantages. Look, you could be in a 3-man company and everybody knows you, but where are you going to go? Where are you going to get promoted to? You're not knocking out the founder and his kid. So where's your future? They may pay you well and you might like your job, but where's your future? So in a bigger company, you have all this opportunity to, these people. And then the beauty of this, Zach, is so now I'm working my butt off and I'm getting, I hope that reputation of that's the guy that won on my team.
Right. And
I'm not pissing anybody off and I'm not making clicks and I'm not making any inappropriate remarks. And, my email isn't, bongdaddy12. It's the stupidest thing you could do is have a social media profile that is not in line with your company's. You should have nothing. That should be private to your friends.
Yeah.
So this was the opportunity, and I carved it out very specifically, and it worked, and it works everywhere, as long as you don't have a timetable. As long as you don't tell me it has to be 2 weeks or 2 months, because I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I can just tell you, it's the same every time. Listen, Michael Jordan missed some shots, and Wayne Gretzky missed some shots, and Randy Johnson and Sandy Koufax didn't strike out everybody, and Mickey Mantle didn't hit homers every time. But here's what they did. Their technique was the same every time.
Yeah.
Every time they shot, every time they did the same thing every time in repetition, and they did it well. And over time, their averages were amazing, made them superstars. Well, I tried to do the same thing in business. I had to try to do the same attitude. And I felt like when I put on my suit in the morning, it was literally my Yankee uniform. Yeah. And from that moment, it was like the lights went on a Broadway show. I had a role to play very specifically. And until I came home in my apartment at night and took that suit off, I was in that mindset, in that role. Now, when I came home and took my suit off, I can do anything I want. I get on with my friends. I can say anything I want. I can smoke anything I wanted to back at that time. Not proud of that today, but anything I want. But in the course of that day, because, Zach, the time to strike is when you're young. And that doesn't mean you can't succeed when you're older. But it means that when you're young and single and you don't have family responsibilities, you can go to work for 12 and 14 hours a day. You can be single focused and you're not taking away from a family or a young baby or this and that. I mean, you may have to do that anyway when you're married to get ahead, but it's a lot easier when you're young and single. Mm-hmm. That's the time. But not to be screwing around and let me not work and go, I want to go to concerts, I want to do this. That's fine on the weekend. But man, I got 5 days a week. I got 10 hours a day. And the executives, again, they're the guys that are there 7 a.m. The 9-to-5ers are not the people changing your life.
Right.
They're the guys hanging out after work, getting stuff done. So it was just a decision, and that's, how to make it.
The Zach Brown Show will be right back. I love coffee. It's part of my morning routine. Without it, I just don't feel like myself. Allow me to introduce you to the official coffee of The Zach Brown Show. Located in Columbia, Tennessee, Oak Hill Farm Coffee Roasters offers a delicious variety of roasts and blends. Every bag of coffee you buy will help mission and humanitarian projects all around the world. What's better than a cup of coffee? A cup of coffee that helped make a difference. Oak Hill Farm Coffee Roasters. Wake up, drink coffee, and go do something great.
So, you're on Madison Avenue.
Yep.
The dream has shifted, but you're doing it.
It was so great.
Were there any moments that you look back now that you were like, that was, like you were in the thick of it, you already heavy, it wasn't the what threw you into it, but was there something in that moment that you look back and go, there was a shift there, like that set you for everything that would follow afterwards? Was there any sort of moment?
There was a couple. One, I'll never forget. I went to work for an agency called Kornhauser & Colleen, and it was a smaller agency, 120 people, but they were growing fast and they had a great reputation. And I got there and it was very loose and it was great. And I worked for a guy named Kenmore Emerson. He was my immediate boss. And the big boss was a guy named Stan Turk. And then there was Henry Kornhauser, the chairman of the board. So Stan is the one who hired me, but he basically assigned me to Kenmore. We had this account called Spectra Video, and it was a weekend show in Chicago that they were doing a trade show. And remember, we were their advertising agency. Mm-hmm. So Kenmore and I went out to the trade show with Spectra Video to set up their booth and get all the collateral material printed and everything. And Kenmore was a nice enough guy, but he was a very straight-laced, wasn't beloved in the agency. Everybody thought he kissed up to the chairman's And he did. He was a very smart guy. Good for him. He did what he needed to do to get his position. I had a lot of respect for him. And I worked very hard for him. I didn't care what anybody else thought. I liked him. You know, he was nice enough to me, and I thought he was a good guy. And I just busted my ass like I usually do. And he and I went that weekend. We had a great weekend. We worked very, very hard. And after that weekend, he wrote an email. He wrote an email to Henry Kornhauser, a 2-page letter of everything I had done that weekend. And I had been with the company 2 months maybe, and suggested that I get a raise.
Wow.
And Henry Kornhauser wrote back, I still have the memo in my files.
That's fantastic.
Great to hear, $5,000 raise. You know, and I was like, just so happy. I was like, wow, you know, it paid off. You know, I saw that it worked. And I went to Kornhauser and Queen after NWR, so I already knew it worked there, but I saw that it worked, and it was just the same thing. It was that same mentality. And to get where you want to be, it must be like when somebody's dream is to go to Broadway. Or to the Olympics, or to the Yankees. I mean, I was there. It was everything I thought it would be. It was so exciting. It was so amazing. It was those Mad Men days of advertising.
Yeah.
There was a lot of partying, but there was a lot of camaraderie and a lot of hard work. And, you know, just that feeling of, okay, it wasn't, oh, how great I am, I've got this done. It was, thank God I did this and it worked and I want more.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted more and more and kept going and going. And so I think those moments, I think Stan Turk calling me in one day, and I had written a couple of memos, and he called me in one day, and he looked at this memo, and he said, I got your memo. Because, you know, I was good at memos, right?
Yeah.
From the George Eversman days. And I said, great, Stan. And he proceeded to rip it up in front of me.
Wow.
And he said, listen, he said, I really like you. You're a good kid. He said, I want to tell you something. He said, there are 2 types of people in this business. There are people who write about things and people who do things. You need to be somebody who does things, not somebody who writes about them.
Mm.
And basically what he was saying is, you know, there's nothing wrong with the memo, but he really loved me. Stan was a great guy, and I loved him. He was just a wonderful, wonderful mentor. And he was showing me that, look, there's more. You know, in essence, he was saying, look, you know, you can be like Ken Moore. You know, Ken Emerson, and again, good guy, you know, wrote a lot of memos, and that's what his job was.
Yeah.
But there was more. There was another part. So I kept that in check. I saw that, and it was invaluable advice. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just stuff I'll always remember. And there was, you know, a lot of things like that, a lot of great victories in the ad game, a lot of accounts won, a lot of pitches. I'll never forget the time, one defining moment. So there's a big gap between the creative people and account management. Now let's go back to me wanting to be a writer. So when I first looked at advertising, I thought, I want to be a copywriter. These guys come to work in jeans and T-shirts, probably are high, and they're just writing copy all day. This is like amazing.
Yeah.
And then I saw the difference in the pay between the copywriters and the account management guys who were in the suits. And I said, wow, I really want to write, but I want to make a lot of money. I'm going into account management. Mm-hmm. And that was my decision. But I kept writing at night and at home. And, you know, today I've written 10 books. I still write on a variety of different topics, God, business, you know, addiction, overcoming addiction. And so I love to write. So I was able to do that on the side. I never gave that up. But clearly, if I was going to put in 8 hours a day, and I saw the copywriters, yeah, they weren't working too hard, but they weren't making much money. These guys were making all the money. I wanted to be where the action was. And they were where the action was.
So I love this because there's so many nuggets through this whole thing. And you have sat and you've poured into my life and given me direction through, you know, just personal life and professional life. For somebody who was looking, and not necessarily for you writing or even marketing, somebody who is to basically say, Jack, how do I break through where I am? How do I go from this space of here, not fully knowing what I want to do, and to get to a next place where I'm thriving, where I'm succeeding? Like what are some, not necessarily 1, 2, 3, but what are some pieces of advice that you would give to whether a young person or an old person, somebody that's looking to basically go from the I'm done with this,
right?
This is I can't do this another day or I'm going to die.
Yep.
I need to move forward. What are the Jack Levine nuggets?
Well, first of all, I would hope that that person at least knows, in theory, stuff they'd like to try. They don't have to know this is it, but you got to know what you want to try. I mean, it's good to try stuff. It's good to try different foods and see different movies and hear different music and see what you like and don't like. But let's say you could identify 1 or 2 or 3 areas that you like, the industries that you'd like to go in. So first of all is that you got to separate yourself from the crowd. I mean, it's just the bottom line, especially today where there's 9 million resumes on the internet. Everything is robotic. You have to separate yourself from the crowd. You have to do the personal touch. There's just no substitute for it. The problem is most people aren't willing to do it. I had a buddy in New York who was complaining that he was out of work and he was miserable. And I said, buddy, I guarantee you I can get you a job in 2 days. He said, no way, how? I said, I want you to go on 50th and Madison Avenue. I want you to stand outside in a 3-piece suit with a sandwich board around your head. Literally, and I want you to write, we'll work and put some of your resume stuff, and I guarantee you, if you stand out there for 2 days, somebody will come by and hire you and give you a chance. Because who wouldn't want that guy who has the courage to stand out there, so motivated as that guy, that he would stand out there in a 3-piece suit, because that's the guy I want. The guy who'll do whatever it takes to get the job. Yeah. And by the way, that works. You can read in the New York Post historically, every 5 or 10 years, they'll show the picture of the guy who did it. Of course, it works every time. Yeah. And he wouldn't do it. My buddy never did it. And then he wondered why he didn't have a job. So basically what he was saying through his actions, forget his words, which said, I want a job, I need a job, I have to have a job. What he's saying with his actions is, I won't do whatever it takes. Okay, then you don't have a job. No problem. And live with that. So I'm saying that you have to separate yourself. How do you do that? There's a lot of ways. You got to be creative. I mean, people always say, I can't get to these guys. And I'm like, yes, you can. Open up the society pages of the Monday paper and see what charity galas these guys are going to. And buy a ticket for $100 and go and mingle. Don't go there and sell yourself for a job. Just go and introduce yourself. You got the guy relaxed, probably at the bar with his wife. Everybody's casual and talking. Find out what country club these guys are in and go join or go caddy there or park cars there or something. Get with the people who can change your life, because talking about stuff isn't going to change it. You got to do something. Yeah. One time I had a buddy of mine I was mentoring, and he went for an interview, and I said, okay, you have to do something different to separate yourself. They interviewed a lot of people. So I came up with an idea they did. I said, I want you to send the guy a plunger in a big FedEx box. A plunger? Like a big plunger thing, like a 4-foot plunger in a big rectangle FedEx box. And say something like, hey, I just wanted to send you this in case any problems come up until you hire me. He does it, and he gets hired. And to this day, 20 years later, the guy who hired him is still talking about, I'll never forget, he sent me that plunger and, and this and that. And then he sent me a calendar that said this many days till Josh starts. And
wow.
And but he was willing to take a chance and do something. It's just whatever it takes. I mean, you can't stalk and be annoying.
Right.
But so I would say that if you think that you're going to send your resume in and get hired, you're out of your freaking mind. And if that's comfort enough for you I sent my resume, I've applied to all these places, so I'm in the game. No, you're not. You're in a freaking database that nobody's looking at and nobody cares about. I had a TV production company after my Madison Avenue days in Florida with 200 employees. We started the company with 5 guys on a borrowed $100,000 and grew it into 200 employees doing $15 million a year in business. So that was great. It was very exciting. So I was the one who hired all the people. My partner, we had different skills, but I would go through all the resumes. Zach, I'd get hundreds of resumes on my desk. I'd take them, I'd look at every one for 2 seconds. I'm scanning that resume for 2 seconds to decide if you're even making the next pile that I'll even look at the resume.
Wow.
So, and believe me, I never put anybody in the resume because of the paper they had or the font they used. I really could give a crap. Now, you shouldn't have a typo in your resume because you'll get discarded immediately, because somebody will think if you don't care enough to check your own work, then why would I ever hire you at my company? So, but it was never about typo or presentation work. It was about what did you do or what are you saying? Okay, and if you apply for a job that doesn't meet my qualifications, I'm never looking at your resume. If I said you need 2 years experience and you don't have it, you're knocked out already, because what that tells me is you can't follow instructions. So you're the last guy I want to hire. Now, there's another way to get to me, but it's not through your resume. So I'm looking at these resumes quick. Now I'm going into a pile, and I'm looking through that pile, and I'm narrowing it down. I'm taking people that I think could possibly I even want to talk to. And then I'm interviewing them. And then in an interview, I'm trying to get a feel for, is this someone who is reasonably intelligent, and all I can tell in an interview is here's someone who possibly could do the job. I don't even know till I hire them. 1 out of every 4 people really were what we were looking for in a sales position that we needed. So what I'm saying is that, you're fooling yourself. Now, let me tell you this story, the most important story of all. So sorry to date the years, it's 1991, and I was out of work for a little while. I had moved down to Florida, and I had left the agency business, came to Florida, really wanted to come, didn't leave the agency business, but wanted to come to Florida for a new start. I was dealing with too much partying in my personal life in New York and felt I needed to get away from that people, felt I had all the experience I needed in New York. And New York is a rat race, it's tough. It's a grind, but again, it's the majors. I felt now I had it. I'd spent 5 years there. I could take this and come down anywhere I wanted and really, have the credibility. So I did that, but it wasn't working right away. And I remember talking to my father, and I was like saying, Dad, there's no market down here. There's not like 100 ad agencies. It's not even real down here. There's one ad agency back down in Miami. It was called Bieber Silverstein in Miami. It was the only ad agency that wasn't even then, wasn't too real. So that would discourage me a little bit. And my father said, listen, I saw this ad in the Wall Street Journal for a TV production company. It's right in Boca Raton. Why don't you go down there? And I was a little discouraged. And he said, no. And he was always about personal stuff. Mm-hmm. So I go down there with my resume. It's 1991. I drop my resume off at the secretary. And my father was always about that connection. He's always like, you don't know who knows who, drop it off in person. So I went, talked to her for, 15 or 20 minutes, just very nicely, not intruding. She just very sweet, talked a little bit. I get a call next day from the owner of the company to come down and interview. I interview with him, and he says to me, listen, he goes, I got 200 resumes here from the top people in the world. He had a sales manager position at his television production company. Because whoever gets the job is going to make a couple $100,000 a year. And he goes, why would I possibly hire you? As a matter of fact, the only reason I'm seeing you is Darlene told me to see you. Stop there for a minute. The only reason he's seeing me is Darlene told him to see me.
Yeah.
The secretary, who he was obviously very fond of her opinion, as I was with my secretary in the future. She had a lot of credibility with me. Had I not dropped that resume off personally, had I not gone the extra mile, never in a million years.
You'd have been in that stack of 200.
Wouldn't even, who knows? I mean, they certainly wouldn't have looked at my resume based on the other guys he had, these top guys in the world. I mean, I didn't compete with them. So it was a very good question on his part. I looked him in the eye and I said, listen, I understand. I'll tell you what I want you to do. Leave these resumes right here. Give me 30 days to prove myself. And if I don't work, go hire one of these other guys. But I'm going to do the job. And, you can find out basically for free. Take a shot. Mm-hmm. He said, all right. And, of course, I did very well on the job for a couple of years. I got rid of those resumes the first week. I threw them all out. I was one coming back to haunt me.
Right.
And then eventually left to start my own TV production company after I learned the ropes in the game. So, but again, saw the opportunity and let's go to the point where I'm in the interview. So, and he's questioning my qualifications, but this is, talk about doing something different and separating yourself from the crowd. So here I am right there. Tell you what have you got to lose? It's the same thing I said to the lady at NWR. Hire me, I'll give you a year, then you're covered. Where's your downside trying me for a month? And if I'm right, you just got your stuff. Now you don't have to go through 6 months of hiring people. Mm-hmm. And if I'm wrong, then go back to it. So again, I separated myself from the crowd. Whether it was Kenmore Emerson, at the Spectre Video thing, whether it was the lady at NWR, Mary Ellen, whether it was here at the TV production company, again, I did whatever I had to do to go forward and to, push the cause. Now, here's the key. So I get hired at this TV production company, and I don't know their industry. I'm a sales manager. I know sales. I've trained salespeople, but I don't know their industry. So I had to learn their industry immediately, quickly, at all costs, so I could train their guys.
Right.
So here's what I did. He had training tapes, and back then they were allowed to two-way record conversations, and they tell you now everything you hear is going to be recorded, right? Every call. I took home these tapes, night and day. Night and day. I listened to these training tapes of him, the owner, training people. So I was listening to him, night and day. Night and day, because I knew I had to learn, and this was something the core for me from advertising. As an advertising guy, when we take on a client, we have to learn their business as well as they do in order to be able to know what to say and advertise and represent it. So it's always a learning process. So I learned, very quickly, but it was imperative. It was, I had to prove myself and prove myself quickly. and that was what it took.
Yeah.
So it's the same in any industry, in any business. So those people, I'm sorry. I know
No, go ahead.
Question, but to you guys out there, and you don't got to send a plunger, and you don't got, but come whatever today's version is. I mean, you got to show me that you're different. It might not work, but you know what? As my father said in all his wisdom back then in 1991, he said, "I want to remind you, you only need one guy to say yes."
Yeah.
You don't need everybody out of work to get a job. I don't care if the economy's tough. You need to go out there and one guy will say yes. I mean, people are looking for people that they can count on, that have integrity, that will do whatever it takes to get the job done, that will learn. Nobody is upset at you for not knowing something. They'd be upset at you for not asking so they can teach you so that you can do it properly, even if you have to ask twice. If I'm the boss of a company, it's in my best interest that you know how to do the job. If I hired you and I want to show you and teach you. So whatever you have to do to learn the job, don't fake it, don't lie, learn. But learn, if you got to go home and read magazines or go take classes or do whatever you have to do to get your knowledge level up to where it needs to be. And the last example I want to give, and we'll let you ask the next question, I'm sorry. If you're a baseball player, and a lot of sports analogies, if you're a baseball player and you come out and you're having trouble hitting a curveball, well, you have two choices. You can stop there and you're going to get cut from the team. Mm-hmm. Or you can go learn how to hit a curveball. Now, what if you look at the other guys and say, well, they don't have a problem. This isn't fair. Why do I have to go take 3 hours of extra batting practice every day to learn how to hit the curve? This guy doesn't have to. Right? Good for him. Yeah. But I have to, if I want to play on that team, I have to get at least to the minimum level required to stay on the team. And I need to do whatever it takes personally to get to that level. And if that means that I got to work 3 hours a day, then that's what I got to do if I want to be on the team. So I'm going to do whatever I have to do. Good for the other guy if he can do it naturally.
Yeah.
Hey, good for him.
The thing that I love that you keep saying this, and it's basically like your mantra, if you will, is do whatever it takes.
That's the bottom line.
Obviously,
legally,
with honesty, integrity.
Right.
But I love that. Just if you want it,
and
do
more,
what it takes,
and more. Just keep going. Just be, again. If you can get yourself in this mindset, I love this about Bruce Springsteen. I love this about Al Pacino. They come into these roles. The thing I love about Bruce Springsteen is when the lights go on. He does this amazing show. You don't know if he had a fight with his wife, if his kid's sick. You have no clue about his personal life because all you know is every time that light goes on, there's this excellent, amazing show, high energy. Al Pacino goes into a role. And I just use these guys as examples. But all I know is when that light is on, they're on. Mm-hmm. They're on. Nothing else matters. They're on. And that's the guy I want to be in that office, in that company, and that focus, and that's it. And you have to do that. It's the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum.
And I love that whatever it takes is the bare minimum. You know what I mean? You're saying, it's like, do you want it? Do you want this to happen? Go after it. Find where they are, not in a stalking or creepy way, but find out what they like. Get around them. Place yourself in a place where you're learning. Get with these people. Keep asking why until there's no whys left to ask, Carl Bastian once said, which I thought was good. All these things, and you've put them into place, and you become this force out in the workplace.
And the key, I had a boss back at NW Air. I was actually split assignment. One of my bosses was Lamar Lamont, great account executive guy, great to learn from, just the coolest, slickest guy. I mean, it was wonderful. The other part was really an accounting part for AT&T, and my boss was Vicki Gundel. And I hope Vicki's not listening. She was not very well liked. She was very stern. She was just not a happy lady. She was a very miserable person. And I was working for her with another guy, like 3 hours a day, and the rest of the day time with Lamar, which was great. And she was a slave driver, and she had no personality. There was no communicating with her. And she was very on edge. And I worked very hard for her. I didn't like her. I mean, I wished her well as a person, but I didn't like her as a boss. I never said anything bad about her, and I could have. And she liked me. I mean, she didn't like me, but I'm just saying everybody hated her. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do that. I didn't agree with her. I didn't like her style. I didn't agree with it. But I gave her the same effort as I gave Lamar Lamont. I didn't cheat her. I did it. And you know what? She respected that. and it never impacted my career, but it was a personal thing to me because I didn't know if it was going to be Vicky Gandel, Lamar Lamont, or Stan or who. I just knew that I had to do this regardless of how somebody responded. It wasn't like, oh, I do this and you got to now do something for me. No, this is who I am. And at some point, people are going to recognize it. I just can't tell you where or when. So maybe it didn't get me anywhere with Vicky Gandel, but I didn't lower my game for Vicky because she wasn't going to do anything for me and raise it for Lamar because I thought he would. I didn't know. You don't know who's going to do what where. And again, you don't know, and I say this, not coyly, who's sleeping with who's whose cousin, and who knows, who's doing what. You just don't know.
And you're always holding yourself to this standard of excellence of character that, like you're saying, no, you don't know who's who, and nothing could ever be said poorly, reflecting on your performance, on your character, on how you handled yourself. I mean, I've had plenty of jobs where working for guys where you're like, you know what, I'm going to work my hardest, but this is not a great boss or you're not a good manager. But when I leave, I know that looking back that it will be spoken well of me of how I worked and how I handled.
Yes.
And that is so tough to do in so many different situations. Not always, but sometimes where you're just like, this sucks. You're just like, I don't want to do this. I dread coming in, or I get physically ill at the idea of going back to another shift. But you still have to, when you walk out the door, say, I gave it everything. I did whatever they needed for the sake of the job. And when I walked out, you're holding yourself to that standard.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, another key is, you have to ask, and I say, you ask, what can someone do? The first thing you should do is go through your entire contact list, and you should ask everybody if they have a connection or contact in the industry you want to be in. Why not? I mean, you're going to die one day, and people are going to come to your funeral, and they'll probably say nice things about you. So my philosophy is, look, do me a favor. You don't have to come to my funeral. You don't have to come. I'm going to die one day, but you don't have to come to my funeral. But do me a favor. If you can help me while I'm alive, please do. So I'll trade you for coming to my funeral. Just help me.
I'll give you the day off.
But I have to tell someone, I really had a bad personality flow when I was a young man. I used to think things about what I wanted or needed or wanted people to do. And I would never tell them what it was. And then I get mad at them when they didn't do it. How stupid is that? Yeah. So I was just an idiot. Well, I just learned as I got a little older and more mature and through some things that no, I need to communicate. I need to put my pride aside. And I need to, if I need something or want something, I need to ask. The worst somebody could do is say no. No is an okay answer. No doesn't mean you don't love me or you don't like me. Hey, can you lend me $10? No. Okay, you're still, I asked, but maybe you had 10 and you did lend it to me. So now I'm going through my contacts and you should go through yours and you say, listen, hey, I want to be in the restaurant industry. I want to be in the engineering. Is there anybody you know that I could possibly talk to and get some advice from? For 5 minutes, just get some input. And that's how it starts. And you know what? I remember I told you that time in 1991 when I was looking for work, and I did exactly that. I swallowed my pride. I called everybody I knew. This is before I got the job at the TV production company, like I told you. And I said, listen, do you have any contacts? Well, one of my buddies had a contact in Miami with a guy named Bruce Turkle, and had a small agency. I went down and interviewed Bruce. Great guy. Didn't hire me, but fired me up. Just the fact, just put me back in the game.
Yeah.
And, I was kind of not getting any interviews, and I reached out, and one of my childhood buddies had I know this guy who knows this guy, and just getting back, and motion begots motion.
Yep.
And so now I'm calling people. All of a sudden, I got a cousin, I got a guy. Well, let me call him. I'll call the guy. Mm-hmm. Again, all I'm asking for is 5 minutes of input and advice.
Yeah.
Today, this very day, we were out shooting a promotional video for Iron Man of God, our upcoming picnic. Me and my buddy Keith just doing some stupid stuff. And the video guy was out there. I never met him before. Keith arranged him to come. He did a favor for a friend. And he's shooting these scenes. And afterwards, I said, what do you do? He says, I went to UCF. I'm 24 years old, and I want to get into events management. That's what I went to college for. But now the pandemic hit us, and there's no jobs, and it's really tough. And I said, okay. I said, listen, I know a guy who's in events management. Maybe he'll talk to you for 5 minutes. I'll see if he'll talk to you. And just ask him, just for advice. So I called my buddy. He said, yeah, I'll talk to him. And they're connected. I don't know what'll happen.
Right.
But who knows? Will it just be 5 minutes and do this or do that? Or maybe the guy likes him when he talks on the phone. Maybe he introduces himself. Maybe he gets him an interview. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
it's all about that personal touch, doing what it takes to move it forward.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
And listen, if you don't send somebody a letter, send them a FedEx. Doesn't have to be a plunger. Send them a thank you note in a FedEx. Everybody gets mail, they throw it in the garbage. You get a FedEx package, you open it no matter what.
Yeah.
So at least they'll open your letter. They'll think, yeah, you spent $10 to send me a FedEx. Good. That's the kind of guy I want, who's going to do what it takes to get through the clutter. Who's going to get my attention and show me, he wants the job.
Yeah. You're going back to standing out from the rest of the crowd. What is it going to take?
Yep.
Yeah.
And don't be scared to fail. And listen, by the way, we have time or are we out of time?
We're here.
Okay. So
this
one time...
This is my show. I'm running the thing. We go long, we go long.
One time I committed political suicide. And so here's what happened. I was at an agency, and I was on some great accounts, and these were called service accounts. And the difference between a service account and a product account was a service account was like a service, like you deliver, like AT&T was a service. Kellogg's was a product, because you could measure your sales by how many boxes went out of the warehouse.
Okay.
And everybody told me you need product experience. You need, in order to go anywhere. And I had all the service experience. I was on the Army account, U.S. Army, be all you can be. AT&T, reach out and touch someone, the top campaigns of their time. And loving it, but I was in my head that you had to have product experience. So I was out of NWR, I was at a different agency, and I said, I want to be in product side. And I hammered them, did everything I told you to do, and finally they said, okay. And I hated it. Zach, all it was a calculator. My whole job was warehouse reports. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? I went from the Yankees and Madison Avenue to a freaking accounting clerk. This is horrible.
Yeah.
This is like the worst thing ever. But I had asked for it.
Yeah.
And they gave me what he wanted. I had to leave that agency. I mean, I couldn't go back and say, put me back on that. I mean, it was but okay, but I learned. I left the agency. And by the way, we're going to talk about that in a minute too. But so I learned. I learned and, okay. So this is important. When you get hired at a place, sometimes you have to leave to get more money and advance your career. Not all the time. But the mentality is, if somebody hires you as a 24-year-old kid, let's just talk about the guy I met today, for, I don't know, $40,000 a year and gives you a chance, and you're amazing, you're fantastic, and they're promoting you, and you're getting raises, hey, $5,000 raise like Henry Kornhauser gave me, and it's 2 years later, and now you're making $55,000, and they love you, but you know what? You may be worth $120,000. Based on what you've learned at this company in the 2 years. But the guy who hired you is never going to pay you $120,000. Not because he's mean and doesn't like you, quite the opposite. But in his head, he can't see you as that guy. He always sees you as that $40,000 kid that he hired. And he's giving you raises. He thinks he's doing great. You're at 55. What are you complaining about? But if you shop yourself, you're going to see you're worth $100,000, $120,000. Now, I wouldn't tell you to leave a job for a $5,000 difference. It's not what I'm talking about. But I would tell you to leave for a substantial price difference. And, you have to be paid your worth. And the experience you get at one place, the next guy is going to pay you for. Now, the trade-off is you may love this place, and it might not be worth $30,000 more to you, or $50,000. Then you shouldn't. Your happiness and your soul are worth a lot more than money. Yeah. But I'm saying, that in a career path, you may very well have to leave. Now, when you get hired at a higher level, you're not going to have to leave. Right. But you're going to have to get to a couple of levels, and that's also part of the game. You want to not get too emotionally involved. Yeah. You want to get what you're worth.
I love this. There's so much to digest, and I hope that there's someone listening that this is what they needed. This is either the kick in the pants, the harsh reality, or just the encouragement that they needed to go from here now to where they're going next. So you're a writer. You said you've written 10 books. And so when I love this question. I've started doing this lately. Okay. And it's great. When the final period has been written in your book, and it's time, and you're called up, what is the legacy that you, Jack Levine, want to leave behind?
Oh my gosh. I hope that people remember this joy for life I have, this happiness that I think it's a choice, Zach. I think it's a choice to be happy or sad. I'm not saying bad things will happen to us that we don't like. They do. But I think life is a gift, and it's a choice to be happy or sad. And I think that it's like time on a clock. The one thing you learn as a speaker is you have a limited amount of time. I asked you how much time we have. And you learn the hard way that you can get off track. And all of a sudden the time's up. And you look back, and the worst feeling ever is say, oh crap, I didn't say my points. I didn't say what I wanted to say. So I want to make sure that in my life, I live the way I want. I've done the things I want. I do the things that I enjoy. There's a balance in life. Work versus pleasure. We work for a benefit. And very few people can do what they love in their life. If you're one of those, that is the most amazing blessing in the world. My feeling is if you can't do what you love, then get paid as much as possible. And if you could do what you love, then do that, and hopefully you get paid too. So I would just hope that I've inspired people and encouraged them to live life to the fullest. That I think it's a choice to be joyful or happy, and I just think it's all perspective. Life is 100% perspective.
Yeah.
You're going to complain. Are you happy? Are you going to complain? And it's what you make it. And this harsh reality of doing what you have to do. The problem with people is we're too comfortable. We're too comfortable. And last story, because I know we're wrapping up, is I was a very young man before I went into advertising. Short time before, I had a major gambling problem through college. And I love to gamble. I also had a drug problem in my day and have overcome both of those, thank you God. But it was a long time ago. I was $44,000 in debt. And at that time, that was more money than I could ever imagine. And I thought about it, and I read and researched, and I learned that you could go bankrupt. You could actually file for bankruptcy, and you didn't have to tell anybody. The courts would know. And I thought, wait a minute, you mean I don't have to tell my parents? My biggest fear was that the people I knew would find out.
Yeah.
I didn't care if strangers knew. And when I realized there was a way out, this bankruptcy, I was like relieved. Okay, there's actually an option. But that fired me up. And I said, now that I have a backup, what can I do about this $44,000? Well, I did something I thought I would never do and never wanted to do. Probably like I thought of eating liver, which is not very attractive to me. For a very short time, I became a stockbroker. And I always knew I could do it. As a matter of fact, I trained stockbrokers. My aunt owned a brokerage firm. And I would train her guys for fun because I was a sales guy. And just motivate them and train them. And I looked down on them because I thought they were slimy. I knew they were slimy. And but they still needed good sales techniques. And I became a stockbroker out of desperation. The last thing I ever wanted to do was be a stockbroker. I made that money back in 3 months.
Wow.
And a lot more. And got out of that business very quickly because I didn't enjoy it. But the bottom line is I was desperate. And out of that desperation, I did something I never thought, but obviously I could do it. It just was too comfortable for me to not. And then I had to. So the problem, I think, is people are sitting there and they're just not desperate. Because, when you got a hungry mouth to feed, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
When you don't, when you can stay home, play video games or watch movies. So the question boils down to very basically, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? Like my buddy in New York who said I needed it, but he wouldn't do what it takes. Okay. So if you want your future, if you need to carve out your own future. The last example I have is I look at it like you go out your door and it's windy. And this is life. This is a parable or analogy of life. You go out the door and it's windy and the wind's blowing to the left. So you go to the left. And now the wind's blowing to the right, and you go to the right, and the wind's blowing back, and you go back, or forward, and you go forward, and this is how you live your whole life, and wherever you land, you land. That's one option. That's how some people live. I choose to say, this is where I'm going. I see where I'm going. I don't know how long the journey's going to take. I may get interrupted along the way, but this is where I'm going. So when that wind comes, I'm not flawed to the left, flawed to the right. I'm pushing forward because I know where I'm going. Now, there's one thing, and this is the key. If I get there, and I don't like it anymore, that's okay. I'll pick a new destination to go to. That's fine. But my life is not going to be some Monopoly board or game of musical chairs and where I land, I land. That's a load of crap. That's how a lot of people live. And then they wonder why they're not happy and wonder why they didn't accomplish their dreams or they had all these thoughts and nothing ever happened because you never did anything. But no, I'm going to get there, and if I find out my judgment was wrong or my opinion was wrong, I'll go do the next thing. That's okay. I'm not scared to be wrong. What I'm scared of is missing out on the things that I want and the things that I think I want. It's like, will you ask the girl out? Well, she may say no. Okay, well, if you don't ask her, you'll never know. So then you absolutely have no chance. And, so you have to be in the game, and the key is not to quit. The key is not to quit. The greatest comebacks I've seen in sports, in business, and in life, they all have the same story. They were down. They were out. It looked hopeless. It was the Buffalo Bills, down 28-3. Jim Kelly quarterback at the half, and he gets hurt, and Frank Reich comes in and rallies him back in a playoff game in the 80s, the most amazing comeback. It's the Yankees down 17 games at the All-Star break. It's Tom Brady in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago when he was with New England. The most amazing comebacks. How? Why? They were beaten. They were beaten. But they all had one thing in common. And these business guys, too, who have failures, one thing in common. They didn't quit. And instead of worrying about it, they just focused on what the next task was.
Yeah.
They didn't think about 100 things. They just ran the next play, Tom Brady. He didn't think, how am I going to get 30 points back? How am I going to run this play effectively and efficiently? They just kept going. And things that they couldn't see and didn't know were going to happen, happened. And that's life. You just keep going until you die. And when you die, then it's over, and hopefully you have a relationship with God. You know Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and you're up in heaven. At least I think that's the way to get there.
Yeah. I love it. Jack, thank you so much.
All right, brother. My pleasure.
This is fantastic.
Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Once again, I'd like to thank our guest, Jack Levine, for spending some time with us. Want more of The Zach Brown Show? Check out the entire backlog of episodes on your favorite streaming service. You can also follow on Instagram and give us a like on Facebook. I'll post behind-the-scenes pictures and updates on all the latest episodes. So like, follow, comment, and subscribe. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd very much appreciate it if you'd take a moment to leave a review in iTunes. Let me know what your favorite episode has been. I'm interested to hear what you think. Our outro music is Nurse by Corey Jess and can be streamed on Spotify and Apple. I'm Zach Brown, and I want you to remember, you've got this. Have a good one.